Okay, this is a meeting of the Hampden Board of Selectmen, April 13, 2020, called to order. As a preliminary matter, this is Donald Davenport, Chair of the Hampden Board of Selectmen. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. John Flynn?
Here.
Mary Ellen Glover?
Here.
Robert Markle?
Here.
Pam Courtney? Kelsey Green?
Kelsey was authorized.
What?
Kelsey was authorized to come to the meeting.
Okay, Kelsey.
As you can see, I authorized quite a few. Pam is, it looks like she's muted here.
Okay.
Can you hear us now, Pam? Oh.
Okay. And Sarah here from the newspaper. Good evening. This is an open meeting of the Hampden Board of Selectmen. Is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirements of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. For this meeting, the Hampden Board of Selectmen is convening using Zoom video conferencing. Is anyone recording the meeting other than us?
No. No.
Can we say the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance.
Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the
The
flag
flag
of the
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one
nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for
and
all.
justice for all.
We have 35 participants on.
Okay. I would just like to say, if all the people can hear me, I'm going to make just a brief statement, and then we'll go into the meeting. It's difficult under these circumstances.
We lost you.
And calling Kelsey Green to speak.
There.
You hear me?
Yeah, let's see, start video.
Yeah, well, we're not.
You don't want to see.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Oh,
Okay. Calling Kelsey Green, and then I'll have the selectmen speak. If anyone wants to offer an opinion or a comment, please send a message to the town administrator or indicate in some other way that you want to make a comment. I'll have them open up your microphone so that we can all hear and try to keep your comments respectful and on topic. All right. So the first thing I want to say is that we get into this discussion about the dispatch, is that it's the responsibility of the selectmen to continually assess and review town operations and to ensure that the taxpayers are receiving the best value and level of service for their money. By way of the dispatch discussion, a little bit of history is in 2008, the 9/11 department was created to improve the Commonwealth's ability to coordinate and administer the enhanced 911 system and to ensure that most efficient and consistent approach to 911 service to all the cities and towns of Massachusetts. Since that time, the state's been encouraging and incentivizing towns to create reasonable dispatch operations with the goal of increasing efficiencies and economies of scale using newest technologies. To date, there are 29 regional dispatch centers in the state, and they're made up of anywhere between 2 and 25 towns. Berkshire County being the largest center, serving 25 towns out of the sheriff's office. Of the 101 cities and towns in the 4 western counties, Franklin, Hampshire, Berkshire, and Hampden, only 25 single dispatch centers remain. 76 of them have been regionalized.
Hmm.
Hampden currently has the third largest call volume of any city or town in the state. It's soon to have the second lowest call volume because Ashby is going to regionalize. It's clear that the state at some point will mandate regionalization. As to Hampden, the history here is that in 2014, the towns of Longmeadow, East Longmeadow, Hampden, Ludlow, and Wilbraham issued a joint request for qualifications for a feasibility study for regional emergency communications. And it didn't get off the ground. In 2017, the town of Hampden voted not to regionalize with the city of Chicopee at that time.
Maybe
And 6 months later, in 2018, the town voted to appropriate $351,000 to join with East Longmeadow in a regional dispatch center. The agreement was reached and announced, but by August 2018, it fell apart. So it appears that the town at that point was interested in regionalizing. They weren't so much concerned about a regional district, they were concerned about where it was to be located. Hampden today remains a single dispatch with the lowest one of the lowest call volumes in the state. East Longmeadow, Longmeadow, Munson have joined with Chicopee at Westcott. Currently, Hampden's dispatch operations cost about $403,000. Under the incentive program right now, Hampden could have its dispatch sent to Westcom and Chicopee. In the first 3 years, there'd be no cost to the town. In the second year, in the fourth year, the cost would be $50,000. In the fifth year, the cost would be $75,000. And thereafter, in year 6 and 7, it would be $100,000. In addition to that, the best practice guidelines for emergency medical dispatch suggest that 2 dispatchers should be on at all times. Hampden currently, that does not happen very often. And if we were to go to the best practices, we would have to hire additional dispatch personnel. So as far as this decision where we are this evening, it's put on the Board of Selectmen's agenda, every agenda or town administrator report since October 12, 2019. The board approached East Longmeadow to see if they are interested in renewing their opportunity to regionalize with us. And after some discussion, the town council decided that they would join with Westcom instead. The Board of Selectmen then researched Munson's decision why they were to join Westcom. And we gathered documents including the district agreement. Early in the process, the town administrator contacted other towns to gather information and ascertain how their regional arrangement was operating, and we incorporated that information. The selectmen and the town administrator participated in which regionalization of dispatch was a major topic. The Board of Selectmen has held 2 open meetings with the director of Westcom. One was in person because we weren't doing the COVID virus then, and to answer questions, the other was through Zoom. The town has approached Wilbraham to see if they would be interested in joining regionalization, and they appear to have a different idea than we do from published reports, and that they're interested in being in control of the operation and billing the town. So we are faced with, so now we're up against the deadline, which is March 4th for this year for the grant cycle. And we have to consider the financial costs, and we also have to consider the other things such as loss of autonomy, and May 4th, and loss of autonomy and the quality of the town service. As far as the financial, the startup costs, we would not save the entire $400,000 the first year, because there would be startup $66,000. We would also, if there were layoffs, the town is self-employed, so we'd be responsible for paying the unemployment compensation as well as some severance pay for those individuals who have served the town so well for many years. And also we would have to consider the cost of not allowing the station to go dark, which is estimated to be about $80,000 to have someone there in the station. So the first year we wouldn't save the $400,000. Subsequent years we would. As terms of loss of autonomy, the Westcom has a board of directors in which the town administrator would be a person on it. It has a financial advisory board in which the town treasurer would be a person on it, and it has an operations committee in which the chief of police would be on it. And each town has only one vote, so it's not a weighted vote. Each town will have an equal vote and equal say into it. In terms of quality of service, there's the concern about having a dark station, and we've talked a little bit about how that would be handled. And also in response time, the technology today, the response time, it would be the same. And towards a quality assurance, the Westcom has a quality assurance and quality improvement review. They currently review all police and fire calls. They have random case review of medical calls, and it's conducted by an independent group called Priority Dispatch, and they respect response time. So I went through that exercise because there's been some concern that the selectmen have not done their due diligence. We've been working on this quite a while, and we've attempted to do as much as we can to get the information we need to make a decision. So with that, I would ask Miss Green if she's on here. She has to be on the agenda, so I would open up the microphone for her to speak.
$100,000 savings. I know you noted that it won't be a $400,000 savings within the first year. You did note that we would have to keep the station staffed, so it wouldn't be a dark station. That would be money that you would have to deduct for every year too, correct?
Correct.
Well, again, that's not another $400,000 savings for the following year, the year after, as you keep saying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then I'm sorry, hold on.
That's okay. There you go.
Yeah, sorry, I have to be at work. We're on a day off block for COVID. So, I'm sorry, the $400,000 savings is actually not a $400,000 savings a year for some of the reasons that you stated, as in staffing the station. I've been made aware that some officers might think this would change their working conditions. They may ask for more money. I feel like that would be money taking off of your savings. As well as when you have to start paying the minimum of $100,000 to Westcom after year 6.
Okay.
So I'm just thinking this $400,000 savings number that you keep throwing out is actually not a $400,000 savings. What is the real savings when you take into account the staffing of the station, possibly having to pay officers more money, eventually paying Westcom after year 6?
Contract.
Do we have answers to that?
We don't have complete answers, but I would just guesstimate if we let's take the first year. So the first year our savings probably would be about $200,000, because if we had to pay the full unemployment, these are just guess now, plus the $80,000 plus the $60,000 So it'd probably be about 200, maybe $150,000 the first year. The second year, if we have to staff the police station, and the police officers union is has sent in a request to negotiate. So even if we save, 200,000 there, and then, or 300,000, and the next year the same thing. In year 3 and in year 4, we would have to add 75,000 to that. So the savings won't be 400,000 every year. I would probably say a conservative estimate, it would be about 200 to 250,000.
And that's if Westcom gets the approval for the full grant. Just because they can apply for this $300,000 grant savings doesn't mean the state has to award them that full boat of money. What if they apply for this grant and the state says, we're only going to pay you half this year? What does that mean for the town? How much does the town have to kick back in that circumstance?
We'd have to see that, but it'd be about 11.35%.
Okay, so just really, in summary, this $400,000 savings isn't really guaranteed.
No.
Okay.
Incidentally, if I could break in here, I did ask the executive director at Westcom to come into the meeting tonight. I noticed she has just arrived and so is available to answer questions.
So Aaron, we're discussing, if you can hear me, we're discussing the actual savings that the town would accrue if we were to join Westcom. And it would be less than the 400,000, obviously, because of severance and things like that. But what is the status of the grant application? How this would?
You're going in and out, Don.
I don't know if you heard me.
No.
I got some of that, Don.
Yeah.
There's several grants that are available through State 911 per year. So there's support and incentive, which right now State 911 pays 75% of our budget through the support and incentive. And there's also a development grant, which we use to build the infrastructure. We're in the process of putting brand new radios, a whole radio system in Chicopee and Long Meadow, and we're adding Munson and East Long Meadow to that as well. So that right there was about a $3 million project for the infrastructure that we were able to pay through that grant. So there's, like I said, the 75% of the operating budget for the support and incentive, and then the development grant is for the infrastructure.
Don, Tina Albano has raised a hand.
Okay. Go ahead. Tina?
Oh, she was one of them.
Yeah. Well, did you? All right. I can't.
We can't hear
I
Tina.
I can't hear Tina. No.
No.
She is not muted, so I don't have an explanation for why she's not able to communicate here.
Can I step in with a quick question
All
then?
right.
How will this pandemic
go
affect
ahead.
the grants
We
if
don't
it's coming from the state?
We don't
Sorry, go
expect that it will, because the grant is funded, it's level funded through the surcharges on these cell phones. So that $1 a month that everybody pays on their cell phone is what funds the grants. And by legislation, that's where the money has to go back into 911.
Okay.
Aaron, one question I had asked before was, because of the state obviously going through this crisis, were some of the dates required pushed back? Obviously, they're looking for a pushback both on tax collections. Hard to believe there wouldn't be a pushback on the May 4th date as well.
That actually already is a pushed back date. The original grant was due April 3rd.
And no further pushback? I mean, they pushed 5 or 6 other things for us. From a business standpoint, we're getting notices every day of differences on requirements we have to submit documents to Boston.
The last time we meet with State 911 on a conference call once a week, and last week when we met on Friday, the head of the department said, no, that was a final date.
Mhm.
Jim
However, you
Smith
can
has a
apply for
question.
this every year, correct?
The development grant we can apply for every year as a regional. The support and incentive, all PSAPs can apply for it. They don't have to be a regional to apply for that one.
Jim Smith has a
So if we
question.
were to table this, we could apply for the same grant and the same savings next year.
You could. I can't guarantee I'm going to have spots open at a regional next year.
I had heard Westcom was looking to possibly expand to be up to 25 towns.
If we are able to get in the building, we can't do it in the building that we're at.
Okay.
Jim,
Okay.
Will
you
that
have a
affect our
question?
cost
Yeah,
ultimately as well?
can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I had some comments and questions. One, Donald, you had said earlier that to keep from going to a black station would cost about $80,000 a year. And my math is there's approximately 8,500 hours in a year. At $10 an hour, that's 80,000. So is this is going to be, I'm assuming, only part-time, not 24/7?
The chief of police, by the way, is on the meeting if you want to hear from him. He's the one that gave us that estimate.
Okay, because, you know, assuming they were getting $15 an hour and another $5 an hour to cover, you know, expenses, and that's probably even light, but say $20,000 or $20 an hour actual cost, that's $160,000 a year. And so I just, you know, I'm just asking what that coverage is for the non-dark station, what that actual cost is and what it represents in terms of personnel.
That estimate was based on 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Saturday and Sunday.
Okay, so not 24/7. You know, I had several questions here that I had submitted in writing, and I don't need to go through all of them. I know the board has gone through this, and it's not so much an exercise for the board as it is education for the community. There's a lot of hearsay out there. There's a lot of people that feel that there hasn't been a good public dialogue on this, despite the fact that there have been several open meeting discussions on this prior to the shutdown. Personally, I had gone in on the 9th of March and submitted some questions to the board, and there was a representation at that point in time that there would be a follow-up meeting with the general public. Obviously, the circumstances didn't allow that to happen. There are people that are unable to participate in meetings like this, and you know, I just implore the board to hold this decision off until there can be a full discussion before the town. And then my last comment is that we recognize as a town that there are going to be some potential lost savings if we don't go with the regionalization. But it may be that the town is prepared to absorb those costs. And I think it would be appropriate to take two budget items to the town meeting, one with the regional dispatch and one maintaining the current local dispatch, and find out what the people actually think. Thank you.
Thank you. Do either the selectmen have any input?
Well, I think the biggest problem here, and Jim makes a good point, is as Aaron said, you have that drop dead date of May 4th. That's what's pushing here. If that date is not valid and we have an opportunity to move it, or as Kelsey said, okay, when the building gets changed and there's a larger building with more towns, join in then, see how it's going. There are some questions about the operation. Don, you gave a great history of it. As you said 3 years ago, the town in a non-binding motion at the town meeting said they weren't in favor of a regional dispatch in Chicopee. The following year, the select board presented a regional setup in East Long Meadow, which, if I'm remembering correctly, everybody was pretty good with. That's why I think the board now exploring the possibility of Wilbraham would get pretty good reception. Don's been reaching out with the board in Wilbraham as well. They're meeting tonight to look over some numbers. It may not work out, but it's due diligence on this board to say we've checked every avenue. Like I said, the only gun to our head, for lack of a better expression, is that May 4th thing. Otherwise, we have a good opportunity to explore other options. I think, as Kelsey said, local knowledge is key. Local knowledge, Hampden and Wilbraham, is almost the same thing. And maybe I'm putting words in your mouth, but I think that'd be much different than the Chicopee local knowledge, so to speak.
At the request of the Board of Selectmen, I did call the town administrator in Munson, the town manager in East Longmeadow, and the town manager in Longmeadow. I had a long talk with the town manager in Longmeadow today, and she reports that they are underway with Westcom and it's working very well. She said that the service is very professional. The fire department is very enthusiastic. Also, the police department a little less enthusiastic because it's obviously changed the situation at their police department. Their experience in Munson so far and the experience in East Longmeadow in affiliating with Westcom is also very positive, according to the town administrator and the town manager at this point.
Can I piggyback on that?
Sure.
So, great that you spoke with town managers and people of that power. However, I spoke with officers who are in direct contact with the dispatchers in Westcom, obviously, specifically from Longmeadow and Chicopee, who several of them had very poor things to say about the operations of Westcom. I understand that firefighters are okay with it, but dispatching a fire call and dispatching a police call require very different techniques. Fire calls can kind of handle themselves once you get them to the location, other than calling for mutual aid. When it comes to dispatching police calls, you're looking more into helping the officers with background checks, locations, again, calling for mutual aid if required. It's a lot more involved. I think the concern
Kelsey,
is that maybe Westcom doesn't provide the same standard that we've always provided, both the town and the officers, especially in that manner.
Kelsey, what are, without naming names or anything, what are their specific concerns? Not knowing what to do, the response time,
Response time, mixing up streets between towns, as in dispatching Chicopee officers to Longmeadow or vice versa. I did hear of one specific instance from both a Longmeadow and a Chicopee officer who stated how there was a dispatcher in Westcom that actually provided classified CJIS information and botched an entire raid by knowing the person who they were going to raid. They told them that it was going to happen, which obviously hinders police doing their job as well as their safety. And that's a concern.
I would like to comment on that I've never received any kind of a complaint from an officer in regards to a situation like that. And I would think if something like that happened, they certainly would have made me aware of it.
Okay.
Tina Albano has raised her hand.
Yeah, and as far as what Kelsey's saying, I mean, Kelsey, I live on the Munson line and I live on South Munson Road.
Mm-hmm.
Tell you the amount of times people confuse the fact that I live on Hampden Road and I live in Munson, which half of my mail ends up on Lower Hampden Road because it's confusing if you don't know the towns. So when people that are unfamiliar with the area, if they're calling out street names, I'm not sure. I mean, do these dispatchers in Chicopee connect directly with our officers?
Yes, they can. They can reach them right over the radio, just like your dispatchers can now.
Okay, but you say they can. How would it normally go?
a call comes into the station and they give the information out over the radio, just as it is happening now.
I don't think the actual operation of how a call is dispatched will change. It's the quality of the dispatch that's a concern. Meaning knowing how, I know here in town, we have some addresses that are maybe an address on a main road, but the driveway is actually on a side street. That's something that we're aware of and we can articulate to officers, especially with, we have a large reserve officer staff that operate under the same capacity as a full-time officer would. However, they don't work as often. So if a call like that comes in, we're able to, in person or over the radio, articulate the nuances of certain callers or like their addresses or things like that, just from experience and knowing the town.
Can I get
Yeah,
in? Well, I think that as you shared, this has been a long process. This discussions have been going on since 2008 and in depth since 2000 for the last 3 years. So there has been a lengthy investigation. I think we're all interested in efficient, effective, affordable, and timely response. Whichever system we should go with. Dispatch is a very important part of giving public service. I think where we have had a problem, as elicited by some of the speakers tonight, is in communicating to everyone. And that has been hampered by the COVID-19 crisis. We had planned to have a public forum, which was not possible. And now we have to communicate through Zoom, which is less than ideal. So there are many reasons that we're in the situation that we are in. I can appreciate that the dispatchers have significant concerns about their future and what will happen. I think that the town vote has been inconsistent. Originally, they voted not to go with dispatch, and then they voted yes to go with dispatch. So I think
But that was based on location.
Well, we don't know what it was based on, really. There were different locations, but one went yes and one went no. So, you know, I think that you can put what you have been sharing since that point is a lot of anecdotal information, and anecdotal information is fine, but it doesn't give you a sense for what the general performance of an organization is like. I think that what we have to get to the crux of the problem or of the situation is, do we want to go to dispatch? Do we want dispatch to stay local, or can we go with dispatch out of the community? And I think that that's an open question, really. You know, I mean, everybody can have a difference of opinion. One of the things I was particularly taken with is the amount of misinformation, which I'm appreciative of Don sharing the actual information tonight, but the amount of misinformation that is going on. There are generalizations and there are facts that are just not true that are being shared. And I don't think that's a healthy thing for our town.
Can I make a comment, Don?
Well,
I've been involved with this, well, for 4 or 5 months. I think the assumption here tonight is that the town has a choice to maintain local dispatch or to move it and consolidate it with another community or another operation. If you look at the pattern of what's going on statewide, we have a short-term choice, maybe a year or two. But it's clear that the Commonwealth is going to force smaller communities to consolidate dispatch. And here's how they're going to do it. They're already doing it by cutting back on the so-called PSAP subsidy that they give to every community. Our subsidy is, well, in the range of $300,000 to maintain our equipment. They're going to put the squeeze, as they already have in sending us the letter, pointing out that we are the 3rd lowest volume in the state. They're going to put the squeeze on smaller communities to consolidate. This has been going on not just for the last year or two. It's actually been going on since Governor Patrick gave the Essex County Sheriff $7 million to put together a regional dispatch for Essex County. That's the reality. if you look at what the state's been doing, it's very hard to conclude that the town has a real long-term choice as to how it would do dispatch.
Okay, but even a year or two is more than enough time to get the townspeople the accurate information that they're very much seeking. As if you were paying attention to anything on Facebook, the townspeople want their voices heard. They want the information brought to them. They want to make informed decisions. Even a year holding off, because you can apply for the grant every year. It's a yearly grant that Westcom is also applying for. You can give the people what they want.
John, do you have any thoughts?
I think, same thing we said before, we have that May 4th deadline that we know of right now. Maybe Bob can do some research on that as well. Always good to verify. Don and Mary Ellen, I know you hate putting things off. You know, it's new to you. However, we know Wilbraham is meeting tonight and getting more information. I think it's prudent for us to get that feedback from Wilbraham. They are our neighbors, our partners, and it costs us nothing to put it off for a week and wait for them, give them the respect to come back to us with an answer. It's not going to change the May 4th date. Whether we vote tonight, vote next week, vote the fall, it's still 3 weeks until the answer has to go to the state. And we've asked them the question, and now to vote tonight after putting them through that exercise would be a little disrespectful to them, I think.
I looked at their agenda and they didn't have a vote
Well,
on
there's only one-
or the dispatch issue even on their agenda. And they were quoted in the newspaper as saying they were going to wait until COVID was over before they took any position on this. I think that they are not looking for a partner. They are looking for how will this benefit Wilbraham. And I think that, and the other thing that I think is that we keep bringing up new reasons not to make a decision. And I think that, well, 1 week doesn't make a difference, and then another week doesn't make a difference, and then we should look at this, and we should look at that. I think we have looked for 3 whole years. Your boards have been looking at this issue, and I think it's almost time to say we've got to make a decision. I mean, it becomes no clearer with more information. It really doesn't. If we're going to be forced into this by the state eventually, which I definitely think we are, okay, is it not better to go when there's money attached to it than when they just say, excuse me, but you're going to have to do it anyways?
And what would your proposal be, John?
Well, I thought you had said when you posted and you had talked about the Wilbraham, they had requested information from the department heads to come back to them. As you said, there's definitely some back and forth in Wilbraham. As we said in our meeting last week, their question is, what's in it for them? We know what's in it for us. Chief Farnsworth reported to us that we would qualify for the same savings if we went to Wilbraham or Chicopee. The question is, what does Wilbraham get out of it? And that's something they have to answer.
We have hands raised by the chief, by Tina Albano.
Chief.
Thank you. Only comment I want to make about the whole situation is we do have competent dispatchers that work for us right now. They do a fine job. I have spoken to the service chiefs out of Westcom. They have not raised any issues about the dispatch there. The service chiefs seem very happy with what they are receiving there. I would absolutely agree that all the signals that we are receiving from 911 in the state is the cost to run a local dispatch will do nothing but increase. And it was very telltale when very shortly we will have the second lowest call volume for 911 in the state. So we are the proverbial low-hanging fruit. So the question will be, what is our tolerance to pay for dispatch? And if the townspeople want to pay it, so be it. They'll get a good product that they're getting now. It comes down to money when you want to decide. You can get a good product somewhere else or keep the good product at home. By delaying the $460,000 that we're spending on a radio system, would have been picked up by the state last year if the decision was made last year. So the state is already signaling that they're moving money towards regionalization. You know, if the townspeople wish to pay for it, our dispatchers are providing a wonderful service now. So it comes down to strictly, in my mind, a money issue that they know what they have now. They know they have good service now. And is the cost worth, you know, going and trying to find out if that other service is just as good?
And how does that cost fit into the total budget? Okay, if the whole country is in an economic downturn, and if the state is going to be reducing its aid to cities and towns going forward, then we've got to look at every aspect of our budget for every single department and saying, how can we prepare if we don't get the amount of money that we had anticipated in the past?
And Tina Albano had a comment.
Yes.
Go ahead.
She is, let me just unmute her. There you go.
She did?
Jeff, I thank you for that comment because I think that's exactly what it comes down to. And along with what Mary Ellen was saying was that the town voted on it. They voted against going to Chicopee, and you said that the town vacillated. But the vote that they voted for was going to East Long Meadow, a town they're very familiar with, something that they were more comfortable with. So I think they're apples and oranges when the votes were happening. So in my opinion, as a resident, I just think whatever we can do, and I can't imagine that I can't imagine why we can't push to have this deadline pushed out so that the town can be allowed to decide what they're willing to pay for. You know, is it worth it to have services in town with the eventuality that maybe we do have to actually go someplace else? But I think we owe it to the citizens that voted going to Chicopee originally overwhelmingly down. I think we owe it to them to at least put it out there and say, this is the conundrum we're having. And I think what you guys are explaining is wonderful. It's a lot of information that I didn't have an hour ago. So I applaud everybody that dedicates their time. I know service, you know, being an elected official, it can be a thankless job. So I appreciate all of you. But at the same time, I just don't, I hated to see something get rushed through and then have all the townspeople feel like they got railroaded and didn't know it was going on, especially with this whole pandemic.
Kelsey,
Yes.
Kelsey, would you agree that regionalization is coming?
I think eventually they might push for it, but I do think we have some time. I think we have time to weigh out our options and figure out what's best for the town. I don't really see the rush in this.
And as the president of the district, you're the president of the district.
Correct.
How much you get for that? No. If you, do you?
I wish I got something.
You understand that?
It's been a headache lately.
You understand that? Let's say, for instance, we regionalize with Wilbraham or I don't know, Palmer or someplace like that. You know, jobs here would still be in jeopardy.
Correct. But I think at that point, and this is coming not just as a dispatcher, but as a resident in town, yeah. I would prefer that if I call 911, I would have more peace of mind knowing that someone in Wilbraham will be answering over someone in Westcom. Personally. I understand that if we regionalize with Wilbraham, not everyone might keep their jobs, if anyone, but that's the same outcome if we go to Westcom.
Hey, Kelsey, or Dawn, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Yes.
How long has Munson been doing this?
How long have they been in Westcom?
Yeah.
Oh, they just
a month or two?
Yeah, they just voted in February.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, the only reason I ask, because I think Munson's geographics in the uniqueness of their town is probably more similar to Hampden than East Long Meadow or Long Meadow is. So I would be just interested to see how they fare with it. That's
And
why
that's
I,
another concern too, is that, Westcom is still so new. It's less than a year old. And then they did just recently acquire small towns, meaning Munson and East Long Meadow. And I am a little curious to see how that goes. Another reason to hold off on making a decision is to see how they operate with these small towns.
Chat.
So,
Here's
I
a
guess
report
we're-
from Evan Broussard, the town administrator. I just went back and reread it. He said, quote, "They are great to work with and our savings are substantial." That's the town administrator in Munson today.
but that's on what, a month or two's worth of data?
I know they haven't affiliated for too many months, maybe 2 or 3, I guess. Jim Smith.
Yeah,
has a
we all
hand up
know how a
also.
honeymoon goes too, so.
Jim Smith has
Okay,
a hand up as well.
okay,
Hi.
go ahead.
I just want to point out the parallels between this and what we saw with regionalization 20 years ago, where the state was providing the quote incentive, regional transportation and touting the economies of scale and other things. And I don't think that we got all the savings that we thought we would get, and I'm not even sure we got the product that we thought we were going to get. And I'm concerned about this. And one of the elements here that I haven't seen discussed is bringing in Mr. Ash and Mr. Lesser and letting them know what we feel as a community and saying we don't like this being forced into regionalization. I think the towns need to speak up and say we don't like where the state is pushing us. We're sending in tax dollars to the state all the time. Why should we be forced to do things differently? The state is saying, well, I'm sorry, Chet, did you have a comment?
Yeah, because we get the money from the state.
But they're saying that we get money right now for our dispatch equipment. And they're saying they're going to eventually reduce that money. Why? We're not reducing the amount that we're sending to them. I just think there needs to be some pushback at the state level to say, or to the state to say, we don't like where this is going. We don't feel that the services that we can provide with regional, we can be provided with a regional dispatch is going to be as good as what we can get locally. And, rather than taking it as a fait accompli that we're going to be pushing in this direction, why don't we push back a little bit? Why don't we have our reps in?
I think that we do push back. I don't think it would hurt to push back on this issue also, but I know that there's a regional selectmen's group that meets, and they just met with the state representatives and went over the regional issues and, the reimbursement and the promises that were made and not kept, and with the direction they wanted to see the state going in. This was the selectmen from our area. I think that has been expressed several times, a number of times, but really to no avail. I think it's always good to keep expressing it and to try to push them in the right direction, but to think that they're going to change is, I would be a little bit pessimistic that they're going to listen to us, really.
I know we're a little beyond this. I just want to make a quick correction. While I'm on here, I got a text from someone that works in Munson stating that they're actually not at Westcom yet.
No.
They've signed, they've agreed to be, but they are
Right.
not functioning at Westcom currently.
Yeah, June. Yeah, he said June.
Okay.
I just read what he
So they
wrote
really
to me,
have no
Frank.
experience working in Westcom currently, for their opinion.
He said the experience so far is very good, and there's a
So
lot
the
of-
experience just talking with administrative level?
I guess, yeah.
Okay.
Also,
So the
Ted
citizen-
Siebert has a hand up. Ted?
Who?
Ted Siebert has a hand up, I think.
Go ahead,
it's
Ted.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Ted Siebert. My question is the May, well, actually got a couple. Is the May 4th date a absolute hard date, or can it be adjusted? Number two, if it can be adjusted that we can have a town meeting of some sort, could we then have the financial people put together, advisory committee, that type, put together some numbers so that the townspeople could see over a 6-year, 10-year period what the costs were if we kept it local or if we went with Westcom?
Well, technically, as it's a yearly grant, couldn't it be pushed back, so to speak?
We lost you.
No, I'm back. The lights are on a sensor and I'm not moving enough.
I think we lost Ted.
He wanted to know if the date could be
Aaron,
pushed back. You can't. Right?
But you can just apply the following
But you
year.
could, but you could apply another year. Yes, that's correct.
I think part of the thing was, back at the beginning, was there was a cap on the number of communities in the current building. Aaron, was it like 5, 6 at the most? And the only way you could get a larger increase was the new building you were planning on. As I think Ted's talking about, and Kelsey as well, you have to wait till next year and they do build a new facility, then apply to be in that one. I go back to Don's point at the beginning. He's correct. This is under the purview of the select board. But as we did with the forum on the ambulance and the trash, we try and get, if you will, the pulse of the town. As Mary Ellen said, we had plans to do that. But again, this virus thing prevented us from having any large gathering, which would have been an opportunity to present a lot of this. I know the board had discussed that. Is there an opportunity to ask for a bit of a, not a reset, but a bit of a delay, if you will, to get the information out there? If everything else at the state is shut down, and any of you who call the state certainly know this, why isn't that date pushed back? And if it's not pushed back, Kelsey brings up a good point, do we have to jump in on the first year? Since we talked about other towns that have joined, do we actually know what their experience is? We don't know about Munson. We don't know about East Long Meadow. 2 cents.
No, I
My
John, I
biggest-
agree with you.
What did she say?
My biggest concern is that, you know, I don't think enough people have enough information, and I don't get around that at this particular time, the way things are. You know, I thought those forums really worked well for the ambulance and for the recycling. I just feel, and I think we need to have some more financial information. And I don't know. I guess
there's only in this time and age, there's only a couple of ways that you could communicate this to the public. You can communicate it online, you can communicate it in a written form, or you can communicate it in some kind of forum. If you do the forum, you have to think that things are going to be reopened, and when are they going to be reopened, and when will we be able to have a gathering? If you do it in written form, not everybody reads written form, so is that going to, and it doesn't foster a dialogue.
Yep.
If we do it online, it's the same as being in written form. It's just a different form of writing, I suppose. So I don't know how you get the facts out there. I do think that is a problem, is the communication of the issues and the timeline and what has happened and the history. So that people at least are talking from a base of facts and are informed people on the topic. Because sometimes this can become an emotional issue. I know that everybody is more comfortable keeping services in town, but I also know that difficult decisions come with the role of selectmen. And I think that we have to say what is in the long-term best interest of the town of Hampden and all the voters. And many times you'll hear from a select group of voters, but you don't hear from all the voters or all the residents.
No, but Mary Ellen,
I missed it, honey. Was that Tina? Or was that Kelly? I don't know.
No, I'm sorry. It's Tina Albano.
Yes. Yeah.
Mary Ellen, wouldn't
What?
you agree? I mean, at least it's been my experience that all these other formats, I usually have found over the past, however many years, 25 years I've lived here, town meeting is always the best format because you guys are able to give such a thorough explanation and the whole, and you can just get such a large engagement.
You think the town meeting is the best format? Is that what you said?
I do. Because I think, like you said, only a few people are going to read something that's posted online or sent to their houses. And I think right now, a lot of people are missing stuff because they're so engaged in just trying, kids are at home and things are just kind of crazy.
Mhm.
And I've always found town meeting, you have a captive audience, and that usually will at least inform the people with the correct information and allow you guys to kind of spell it out as to what direction we have to go in or what our options are.
The problem with town meeting, from my perspective, is that a lot of people are not comfortable speaking at town meeting because of it's a more formal setting.
Yeah.
And I think that they, sometimes there isn't the depth there that I'm looking for of a discussion, which is what was good about the forums for the ambulance and the fire. What was it? The transfer
Right.
station. That really led to some in-depth kind of discussion and open communication, and I thought that was very effective.
Okay.
So can we
Well, then
have time to create a forum?
If we had a way of doing a forum, but you can't have that many people together. That's the problem.
Could we maybe
Well,
do like an online, like a Facebook page or?
We have 41 tonight.
One of the
41
questions
people?
that's come up,
That's great.
one of the questions that come
That's
up is
great.
people have asked, what does this mean out of my wallet? And Jim, I know you're online, you've got the history on it. Typically it's 600,000 for $1 on the tax rate right now. Don talked about savings with the offsets in the 220, something like that range, Don. Maybe 230 after you put the person in. So you're looking at basically $50 to $60 a year per person in terms of a savings on a typical house. So that's kind of your question. What does that mean out of my wallet to keep the dispatch in town? And are you doing the right thing? So
That I think that I have always been a proponent of saying, what does it mean on my house? How much more am I going to have to pay? So I think that that's a nice way of presenting it. My concern is that when you do it in a small amount of money, it looks like it's very little. But the town raised their hands at the last town meeting, for an addition to the highway department, for a truck for the fire department, you just keep raising your hand and you don't see the whole picture of what this is really doing to the tax rate, or to my personal tax bill. So that's of concern too, is that it has to be seen in relation to other things, I think.
Well, I think we need to move this off our agenda, one way or the other. And I think there are a lot of questions were raised this evening. Quite frankly, I'll be quite honest with you all. I was prepared to make a decision tonight. But now I'm having second thoughts about the timing of that decision. So,
I too was prepared to make the decision tonight. But I think that the argument that weighed with me was that Zoom is not an effective communication tool, A. That B, there is a lot of misinformation and the correct information has to get out. And then and although I hate putting off a decision that has to be made, and I think that one more week, we could afford one more week and make the decision next week if we could do something in the interim to get people the information and to explain where we're coming from and why we think this is, why I would take the position I would take on it. But I don't know what that would be. But I think it would have to be timely, and because it cannot go on, this cannot go on forever.
I'd like a formal answer from the state on the May 4th. If they gave us something, Bob, go back to them and say, is May 4th a drop dead absolute? Don, then that really sets the end line for us. We can't do much more than that.
right.
That makes
But
sense.
if they say, oh, we're pushing it 2 months like the tax bills, like the state budget, well, then we have our due diligence to do, which saving our budget as well.
Well, John, I don't understand. If we're in a state of emergency until May 4th, how are they going to even process this on May 4th?
Well, that's what I'm saying. mean, they're telling everyone to apply for unemployment. There's nobody working there. So good luck.
Exactly.
But
Bob, would you undertake that task?
Sure.
from home, of course, Bob, please.
And so
And what I'll do is also put together a comprehensive financial, on paper, financial options. Starting with the full cost that we have for dispatch, which is $403,000 plus the over $300,000 that we now get as a subsidy from the state and are not guaranteed.
We lost you.
You lost me?
No,
No, I hear him.
he's good.
And then the other side of it would be, again, not guaranteed, 3 years with
Has it all gone?
Westcom plus 50% subsidy and then 25% subsidy, 5th and 6th
Okay.
years.
All right.
Those trade-offs and how much it means on the tax rate.
Mhm.
All right. Good. All right. I'm going to end this. So that everyone understands, we're going to defer next week. We'll see what Wilbraham is doing tonight. Bob will check with the state 911 to see about the firmness of that date, and we'll put together a financial package that we'll be able to share at the next meeting.
Okay, before we end
Hey,
up,
can
we have a hand up for Mr. Clavitt. Hello?
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, Thad.
Yes.
Yeah, just one thing to note. The two most popular things on Facebook today were probably this subject and the flagpole subject. And half the stuff you read on Facebook is you got to take with a grain of salt. All this information, and Bob, if there's any way you can post that on the town website, and if anybody has any questions, they can send them to Bob to answer on the same town website. That way the answers are coming from the town website rather than 3 different face groups.
Mhm.
That makes sense.
I can certainly do that. I read what's on Facebook, but I don't respond to it.
Or have the town have its own Facebook page.
Yeah.
Dad, I think that's the best idea, honestly, is if the Board of Selectmen did their own Facebook page
Mm,
or even
Well,
its own group for
To
regional.
change the topic, at your suggestion, Don, to bring it up at the next meeting,
Not everybody has Facebook.
at your suggestion, Don,
That's correct.
to bring it up at the next meeting, can we make a commitment tonight to vote at the next meeting? I can make that commitment.
Of course you can. You bet.
Yes.
Okay.
You can always change your mind.
You can always change your mind, but I think we have to have a vote. We have to have a vote.
All depends on the answers. What if Bob comes back to us and said, hey, the state moved it back to July?
Then we would vote to delay until July. That would be the vote.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
Yeah, but I
So
mean, we
we'll
will
wait on
have
the
a vote of some sort on this topic. Because I think that, again, 3 years is a long time to go with no votes, if you ask
Right.
me. I think it's not meeting your responsibility. Your
Okay, I think
responsibility
the
is to take the
3
information that gets given to us and then to take a position on it.
Okay, the
And-
3-year
and-
thing is disingenuous. Those are 3 separate proposals. One was a proposal with Chicopee, one was a proposal with East Long Meadow, I think, housed in East Long Meadow, and one was a proposal in Hampden. They're not, you can't say we've been considering the same
No, they aren't the
proposal
same,
for
they
3
aren't the
years.
same proposal, but I've been going to selectmen meetings for 3 years and this topic has been coming up. I know
Sure.
that for a fact.
Right.
So we've been discussing dispatch for 3 years is the way I'm looking at it. Because it's
Mhm.
always been a topic.
All right. We have a
Okay.
All right, we have a plan for next week.
Mhm.
So that's what we'll do. And want to thank everyone who contributed. Kelsey, thank you very much for taking the time to share your opinions, and Tina and Thad and the Zeberts and Jim Smith and the other people who listened in. This is a terrible way to conduct business, this Zoom thing, but at least we can conduct some business. And I want to thank everybody for participation.
Incidentally, for all those who are going to participate next week, I post the link as well as the password on the town
We've lost you.
website. So you don't have to, you lost me?
No, you're fine.
I post the
Bob, you
link.
can't hear you.
I post the
Yep.
link as well as the password on the town website, so you don't have to send me your.
We lost you
email.
after I post.
I've got them.
Okay.
Maybe you should pay that phone, maybe you should pay that internet bill, Mary Ellen.
Yeah, right.
So anyone can access these meetings by just going to the town website and taking the link, the URL link, and the password, and you're in the meeting at 6 o'clock next week. Or you can send me your email address and I'll respond one at a time.
All right. Next top,
Thank you all for
next
coming.
topic.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next topic on the agenda, review of the Selectmen's Policy Manual. I know, John, you sent some edits that you're interested in.
Yep, and I was hoping
Mary,
that,
can you repeat
Yes,
them?
thank you. Thank you. That's great.
I was hoping
And you
that
got-
Bob
you
would
got
have a
half-
chance to,
You got half the edits from me.
That's good. It's better than none.
I'll finish
again-
them tomorrow, but it's a
That's
very
fine.
long.
You've got other things. You've got other things on your plate.
Right.
This is not the
document.
priority.
Yeah.
This is not a priority.
and I
But
would
I
think
will
with,
go through. I
with
will go
Bob's
through and.
experience,
Pardon me.
with Bob's experience, this is, Bob, I don't know, either your 7th or your 17th or your 27th town you've worked for.
Right.
You would have the best opportunity to provide some good edits to this type of manual,
Yes.
having worked with so many select boards. And I'm going to be very interested to see what you bring back to us,
Okay.
with that type.
Right.
I did
Right.
did spend about an hour and a half on it today, and I need more time. So.
Okay.
Okay. So we'll get it to you as soon as possible.
Okay.
Fire chief hiring process.
Well, we have a committee. I did call Mike Gorski twice. I haven't heard back from him, but the suggestion of the board last week was that he be invited, given his experience in town. And we're targeting
I
May
thought that.
for review of
I
resumes.
thought the suggestion was that we would ask him for a recommendation, because I remember the fire
Right.
chief from Long Meadow being mentioned by John, and the
Yes.
fire
Right.
chief from Long
Yeah.
Meadow, I
The
thought.
rest,
And I thought we were asking Mr. Gorski for his recommendation.
yeah, I think it was a little too
If I-
close to the people, but a recommendation would be good.
Okay.
Right.
I'm sure I'm going to hear from him, but no one's in the office. The DEP office is currently downtown, so it's when they pick up their phone messages. I'll get a recommendation from him, and we're still targeting May for review of resumes and a decision. So
The
we
only
would
other
have-
thing I thought, I did give some thought to the advisory committee, and I wondered if Turcott would be a good person to put on from the advisory committee, since she was on the original chief study committee, and I thought that would carry that committee's work over to this final process. So you might think about that. I'm not tied to that, but I thought Heather would be a person that had both a hat in both rings, kind of thing.
Well, yeah, but I think we would get the advisory person, they would send us their name. So,
They right,
We-
but
right, we
but
don't
if
tell
they
them.
sent her, that would allow us to have a continuity of experience
Yeah.
of one person at least.
Yeah. All right. Could I indulge the board's patience, and could we put off the budget review till next week?
Sure.
Seeing the town meeting is
I'll be
until.
here.
Okay, all right.
Mhm.
Town administrators report.
Okay, I sent it out today. Did everyone receive it?
Yes.
Yes.
We do have a complete disability commission, but the first meeting is delayed because of the emergency. I'm going to bring up the need for a part-time conservation agent at the regional meeting to see if any of the towns can be helpful or supportive there. By the way, the invitations were supposed to go out this morning. I talked with Eric Weiss. He said they were going to go out right away. They didn't go out. I talked to him in the afternoon, and apparently they were having internet problems. The system was down, I guess because of the high winds and the weather issues. So what worries me right now is that I didn't look at my email after coming on into this meeting, but at this point, if it's not out there, then I think we have to move it because there would not be time enough to post meetings of the selectmen if it's going to be on the 15th. So I may have to move that tomorrow. Anyway, at that meeting when we have it, we'll certainly ask for some support and help surrounding communities for a conservation agent. I did post a full list of the town administrator reports on the website. I don't know if any of you have seen that.
Pam Courtney was on there.
What?
I'm sorry? Remember we had the discussion of where to put the town.
Right, we added them under your page, and I moved a bunch of them into your page.
You moved them into my page. Well,
Right.
there were some gaps. I filled the gaps.
Oh, thank you. Okay,
And
good.
so it's complete now.
Good.
Going back to September. We also posted a statement for the residents of the town as to what services were being continued during this emergency.
I thought that was great. Great.
I got a response from all the departments, and it's now up on the website. So it's amazing that most of the services continue, that they're able to do it using technology, phone, internet, and email. Also, we're going to post video recordings of the selectmen's meetings Tuesday morning following the Monday night meeting. So anyone who wants to see what happened at a meeting, if you don't tune in live like this, you can see the video the next day.
I've asked FEMA if they could pay for makeup and hairstylists. They want to be on video.
Well, I think that's going to become an increasing problem for everybody. I'm thinking I'm looking more like a sheepdog. If we don't get barber services, the sides are coming over my ears. Anyway, the town council is composing a contract for trash hauling and recyclables. And I expect to have something back from them maybe in time for next week's meeting for the Board of Selectmen to sign. I did contact the out-of-state applicants for the fire chief position. No response from one, and the other one withdrew. So I think we're realistically down to 4 candidates at this point.
Yeah. Bob?
Yes.
Can we go back to that disability thing? You had mentioned that the commission is full now.
Yes.
And I know that back at the beginning, we said, I think Becky was in charge of that.
She's
Is
the
she
ADA
going
coordinator.
Right. Is she going to maybe reach out to the different people and see if maybe we can do a Zoom introductory meeting?
We haven't discussed that, but I think, that's something we can do. That's something that I can be in touch with her.
Okay.
And I did update, by the way, this list of services that's on the website to include the senior center.
Okay.
You had sent me something about that. Well, she sent me her response over the weekend, so that's been updated.
Okay. I do want to say one thing, and quickly to Jane and to Mary Ellen as chair of the Board of Health. I appreciate the fact that the transfer station is staying open. The people up there are working terrifically through this. Jane was up there subbing, I think, a little while ago. Typically, the Board of Selectmen also goes up there and subs in the future, and
right.
You get the uniform, the whole bit. Don, I know you're looking forward to that. Go ahead, Gene. Sorry.
Okay, we did do the tour of Academy Hall, which I found a very interesting place, especially the museum upstairs, as well as all the old farm equipment and stuff and so forth that they have in the basement. We went on the tour basically to see in what kind of condition the paint was on the outside, and it really needs to be painted. It doesn't need a $149,000 job. I think we need to advertise that again. My guess is that you can get it painted for far less than that, maybe 15 to 25,000. And the society has offered to pay part. We were not able to get them to make a money commitment, but they said, get another bid, get a sensible bid, and that they would be willing to contribute to the painting of the outside of the building.
I think a little history there, a little history for the other two members were the last time we went out for a bid was because we were looking for CPA money, and that would have been from the historical resource part of it. Therefore, that got into the qualifications of how the painting was done, scraping, etc. If we are not looking for CPA money to fund this, as Bob said, you're painting a two-story house. And I think we're all saying we're not spending $150,000 to paint our two-story house at home. If the Historical Society is going to chip in, and they've committed to do that, I think we're looking for a very reasonable outlay from the town to keep really a symbol of Hampden's history in good shape. And I think if Bob goes and gets a few quotes from typical paint guys who right now are probably hungry for work, we're going to get a pretty decent number and come back.
It's all lead.
There he is.
I don't think it's lead anymore. I think since there was a paint job done years ago, I think that part's gone away. Go ahead, and Chet, here's our paint expert. Chet.
Hey, listen, I went and looked at that building probably 3 years ago. And I can remember back, and I forget how long, it's got to be 10, 15 years ago when it was being painted in November. I remember that distinctly because it was election day and we were going to the town hall to vote. And I looked across the street. It was rainy and drizzly. It was cold. And we had 3 painters out there painting the front of that building. You don't do that in November.
Absolutely.
Plus, the other issue is lead paint. If you have any kind of lead paint and you're going to be sanding that building, that's going to be big bucks to get rid of that. So, I mean, you know, 150,000, I don't think so. I don't think you're talking 10, 15,000 either.
Chet,
that's just my opinion.
Chet, when did they stop using lead paint ballpark?
The
70s, 80s?
78 is the, we had to take a class on the lead paint issue, and anything built before 78 has to be tested for lead. And I believe it was at the time, anything disturbed 3 square feet of paint disturbed would qualify to have it, I forget what the name of it was, but abated, right.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of scraping and sanding that has to be done on that if you're going to do it right.
Okay.
Well, we'll go out and try again, see what kind of bids we can get. Yes.
You said you had the experience in college, so I think you are the guy to go out there.
I worked 3 years in the summertime when I was in high school and 2 years when I was in college for a painting contractor, and I've offered to do it for 140. But,
I told him I'd do it for 120.
So the other item that is on my list is that we did meet with Fuss and O'Neill on a potential TIP project at the main intersection there at Allen and East Longmeadow in Wilbraham. We were informed that there were 62 accidents at that intersection in the last 3 years. And because of that, a project proposed for TIP funding, that is the Transportation Improvement Program, which is run by the Regional Metropolitan Planning Organization, which gets money from the state, which gets the real money from the federal government. Anyway, and they do big, expensive projects. And so because of the danger at this intersection, this project would go right to the top of the list. And you could probably get very significant safety improvements done within 3 or 4 years from start. And so I suggested to them that we would set aside some time in a selectmen's meeting coming up where they can make a presentation to the selectmen. Sarah has a question.
Which intersection was that, Allen and what street?
Wilbraham Road.
Wilbraham Road, East Long Meadow Road, Allen Street, and then all the way down actually to Summers Road. So there's a lot of parts to this. So I thought that next step would be to present to the selectmen, show them what can be done. That concludes my report. As I said, I think I may have to move the regional meeting of the selectmen and town administrators from the regional towns maybe to the following week. Here's what happened. I don't have email addresses for selectmen in most of those towns, and you can't get them because the town halls are empty. And so I've been making calls to town administrators, and they're not always available. So it's been delayed. I did make an arrangement with Pioneer Valley Planning Commission that does have a master list to send out the invitation. And as I said today, they had a problem apparently, and their internet service was down, and I don't think it went out. Now I think it's too late, particularly since some towns might want to have a quorum of their selectmen, and they would have to post a meeting. I did post a meeting for the Hampden Board of Selectmen, but we may have to cancel it. So more on that tomorrow. But I think we have a lot to talk about. Like, we have a lot to discuss in terms of how we're all coping with the emergency. I think we have financial issues that we need to discuss, see what other towns are going to be doing. I think it's only fair to assume that state revenues are going to be very tight. They're already dropping off a cliff, and that means, I think, cuts in state aid to cities and towns. So this is something I think we should all discuss and see how we're all handling it. And then again, as I said, I want to talk to them about finding someone who can help and support our Conservation Commission. That's the report, Chairman. Selectmen meeting on the 20th, department heads and staff and so forth on the 22nd, and that's what's scheduled for now.
I have three things. Number one is Jane received. Jane, are you still on?
Yes. Yep, I'm here.
Okay. Go ahead. What'd you receive from Pioneer Valley?
Oh, I forgot. I received the second contract for the second wave of money for the Board of Health, another $4,400 that has to be signed. And do you guys need to vote on that to sign it? I don't know. But yes, so it's the second wave of money for the Board of Health.
A second $4,400, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I can go in and sign that tomorrow. So
it's copied in your box.
Just for the record, you want to make a motion to accept it, and I'll go sign it tomorrow.
I move that we accept the Board of Health check for $4,400.
Enthusiastically second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. The other thing, Bob, is Heath Joseph, the VFW person, he wants to be put on the agenda to talk about the Memorial Day Parade.
Okay.
So if we could arrange that, okay? Because that's coming up, and who knows where we're going to be with that. I mean, I don't know those ceremonies. God willing, we'll be able to conduct it. And the third thing I have is to be able to waive the interest and penalties.
I have those on the agenda for next week. You did ask me to put those on, and I have them on.
Okay. All right. Anyone else have anything else?
I had the waive the penalties also. Why would we have to delay that though? Is there?
Well, I think we need a feedback from both the town accountant, the town treasurer, the tax collector. It's not just our call.
Okay. I was just curious about that. Number two, the newsletter I did check with Becky for the, to put our addition in their paper. She assumed they were going forward, but she wasn't quite sure of the format. And her deadline is the 15th, or for us, it's the 15th. And she suggested that I get it to John. So I will do that once, and I'm going to use less color. Number 3, what is happening with Cumberland Farms? Do we know about that? Anybody?
I thought Ted reported back to us in an email. Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe he did, but
Yeah.
okay. All right. So I'll check with him then if he knows.
This is Ted.
Hello, Ted.
Long story short, the legal paperwork that we sent to them got misplaced somewhere between the environmental specialist company and Cumberland Farms himself. The last thing I knew, they were searching for it. They have been out at least once, someone from the organization or the construction company looking at the site. And if you notice, there's also some silt fence and stuff that's up. I have not heard from them in 5 days or so, so I'm not sure what's transpired since then. I'm assuming they found the paperwork because they have not come back to us, and it's been a long enough duration. They must have found it.
Good. Okay.
One more thing for the board. I had mentioned to Bob that it's a great time to work on the cupola. The contractor is willing to do it. And I think at this point, Bob will coordinate with Paul with the blessing of the board and just set up a time.
Jane has her hand up, but also when this came up, I talked with Jane, and she has set it up with Mr. McNaughton to do it.
Okay.
I'm already working on it. See, guys?
Good girl. Good girl.
Good. No shock.
Not done yet?
No, I'm not done. Wait, no, tomorrow it'll be done. How about that? I don't know. I just want to say, transfer station. Thank you, you guys, for, the guys are working so hard up there and they're doing a great job. But please, anybody that's listening, don't sit and visit with them. Dump your trash and leave. They are, they can get it just as much as anybody else. Please just dump your trash and leave. And the other thing, Lori McCool is working around the clock for the town of Hampden. I just want you to be able to know that, and she's amazing.
And so is Jane Badekowitz.
The girl that
No,
looked at-
that's not true, but we couldn't do it. We couldn't get through this without Lori. Let me just tell you, she is amazing.
Good.
Oh, and I sent, I sent a thank you to Parks and Rec for changing their bulletin, their message board, and putting up the,
Oh, good.
the COVID-19 thing. So they did a nice job on that too. Anything else to come before the board?
No.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all. Be safe out there.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff.